I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual.
起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬、再鞠躬、三鞠躬，参加各位点传世一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
We are now ready to proceed to 8. So what do we have in Tao Te Ching 8? It says, the highest goodness resembles water. Water greatly benefits myriad things without contention. It stays in places that people dislike. Therefore, it is similar to the Tao, dwelling with the right location, feeling with great depth, giving with great kindness, speaking with great integrity, governing with great administration, handling with great capability, moving with great timing. Because it does not contend, it is therefore beyond reproach. Okay, so overall, this chapter is about, like one, it's about water. And it's about the characteristics of water that Tao sages and Tao cultivators will emulate to become closer to the Tao, more similar to the Tao, more in alignment with the Tao, or what I would like to say usually, more congruent with the Tao. So how would we divide this up into sections? Well, as we were reading through this particular chapter, you probably noticed that in the middle part of it, starting with dwelling with the right location, all the way down to the third line from the end, where it says moving with great planning. So everything from line 5 all the way down to line 11 has a similar structure to it. Like all of them every single line has with, and the verb ends with ing. So checking the original Chinese, we discovered that those lines are all 3 characters in length. And furthermore, the middle character is all the same. So let's go ahead and highlight that to make it a little more obvious. As you can see, without necessarily having to know what the middle character is, you can tell that it's the same character that's being repeated top to bottom. That same character also occurs as the second character of line 1 and also as the second character of line 2. So we're definitely going to talk about what that character is. For now, though, let's focus on the overall structure. So we have 7 lines in the middle of the chapter to describe water / Tao cultivator / Tao sage / the Tao itself. So evidently, this chapter functions on multiple levels, multiple layers of meaning. And as usual, what we would like to do is to peel back those layers one by one line at a time. So with that understanding, we can pretty much conclude that from 5 to 11, that those lines form one section. And there's a section before that, which is the beginning section. There's a section after that, which is the ending or the concluding section, as you can see. So the beginning section, we've got 4 lines there. It starts out talking about water. In the middle section, which is the centerpiece of this chapter, it's a series of poetic descriptions of water slash the Tao slash Tao sage slash Tao cultivated. Then we have the conclusion at the bottom, which references again to water. So let's go ahead and break it down line by line. So we begin at line 1 with, again, a 4-character line. So remember from last time, I spoke of the prevalence of 4-character sayings in Chinese, 成语. So this is a 成语also. It's a set expression. And the way it sounds, let's take a look at the pinyin. 上善若水. So this can be pretty tricky to people who are attempting to study Mandarin. And that's because the first 2 sounds seem very close. If you take a look at the pinyin, you may think that it's, shang, shan, something like that. So they sound very similar. In Chinese, in Mandarin, it's shang san, and they don't sound alike. They sound further apart in Mandarin than they do in English. Furthermore, the last character there, the character for water, very important character. If you look at the pinyin, you may think that it's shui, but it's more like shui, more like an A sound instead of EE. So together, 上善若水. You can tell the translation as provided. The highest goodness resembles water. How do we get to that translation? Well, let's break down the characters one by one. And by the way, we don't do this for every single line. We do it for just the important lines, so we get the overall idea. So these 4 characters, what are they? What do they mean? The first character, 上, it means high, higher, highest, or up. And it could be upward as well. So it's got all of those meanings of something that's placed higher. 上. Second character, 善. Second character is well translated as goodness. And I'm going to explain in just a moment that it is similar to the English word goodness in a couple of different ways. Third character, 若. That means like or similar to, resembles. And then the last character, only one way to translate it, 水. That means water. That's it. So the last character, remember, it has only one definition and only one acceptable translation, water. It cannot be anything else. And this kind of flies in the face of people who, present themselves as being knowledgeable about Mandarin. So they will say that every Mandarin character has multiple definitions. Not so. This one has one definition. It can only be translated one way. Okay, let's talk about the second character for just a moment. Here, as elsewhere in the Tao Te Ching, because Shan appears in many different chapters of the Tao Te Ching, wherever it appears, it has the same double meaning as goodness in English. So think about the word goodness. What could it mean? Well, I can think of a couple of different ways that it can have meaning for us. Number one, goodness as a virtue, a positive trait, or an improved characteristic that you cultivate. So, the goodness of being diligent would be one example, or is the goodness of being considerate to other people. So when I say it like that, you can tell that having a particular goodness, meaning having a good trait, a positive trait, something about you that people like, something about you that people find agreeable. But there's another way to use the word good or goodness. Being good at something, as in being talented or highly skilled. What's the difference? Well, being talented means that you are born with an innate ability to do something well. Perhaps you have a talent for singing. Perhaps you have athletic talent. Perhaps you have a talent for solving complex problems. Whatever the case may be, it's something that you had, that you got with you as part of you. Now, it requires training and practice to bring out the most of it, but it's something that you bring with you to start with. Highly skilled, this means discipline and practice and time to master a particular skill. So, in the context of the Tao, being good at something is always about being good at life. Or we can say it in a more elaborate fashion by saying good, san, in the Tao can be about being masterful at the art of living a joyous life in the best possible way. The best possible way meaning everything is smooth, effortless, graceful, and just nice, without any strife. Frictionless, you might say. Okay, so when we say, looking at this, when we say the highest goodness resembles water, we can think of it, according to this, in two different ways. The highest virtue, when your virtue is at the highest level, it resembles water. Why? We'll talk about why. Another way to think of it, the highest goodness, the absolute, ultimate, best way to live life. The highest mastery, so to speak, in the art of life. Let's keep moving. So, Sat, the character for good, reappears again, and the first character is water, and then the second character is good, third character there, Li, that means benefit, fourth character, 1, that's 10,000. Things like living creatures, and then we have a connective, earth. It can be but, it can be yet, it can be and. Well, just put but. Then we have a negation character, boom. That means not. No or not or none. And then the last character, then to contend, to squabble, to fight, to clash with someone. So, reading this from left to right, water, good, benefit, 10,000 things, but not content. So, you can sort of put it together based on this by forcing this into something that's more like an English sentence structure. Water is good at benefiting 10,000 things, but not content. So what do you mean? Water is not good at contending? No, it actually means water can benefit everything without contending with anything. So a rough transcription that follows the order of the characters mostly will be water is good at benefiting all living things while not contending. As I said, the character that we wrote down as but, earth, that's a connective character, so we can use while to make it make more sense. Water is good at benefiting all living things while not contending. All right, so remember that we want to emulate the Tao, so that means we learn the characteristics of water and become more like water. So when we say water is good at benefiting all living things while not contending, when you apply that to a human being, what it means is to be a good person, or, remember the dual meaning, to be good at living life. In order to do that, to be virtuous, or to be masterful at life, what we ought to do is to emulate water, and we can do that in a couple of different respects. Number one, just like water, nurturing all living things. You, like water, should be a positive benefit to everyone around you. Family, friends, co-workers, etc. So the visual imagery is that just like water, feeding or providing, slaking the thirst for all the living things that it comes across, whether it be animals or plants, you should be supportive and beneficial for all the people in your life. That's number one. Number two, no contending. Without contending, you should never get into petty conflicts with anyone. From the Tao perspective, it's a waste of time and energy. It doesn't really get anywhere. We go much, much further in the spirit of harmony than we do in the spirit of discord. Let's move on. So now we have the third line. It stays in places that people dislike. It refers to water. Now, if we just look at nothing but the original text, we would only see that if water stays in places that people dislike, we wouldn't really know what those places are that people dislike. If we simply go by the words, there's no explicit indication that people dislike the lowest places. It doesn't say the lowest places in the original. So how do you know that's what Lao Tzu meant? Good question. We can figure it out with a couple of different approaches. Approach number one, we can guess the intention of Lao Tzu just by common sense knowledge of how water behaves. We know that when we spill some water, when we pour some water anywhere, that water will automatically flow to whatever is the lowest point in the immediate vicinity. So we know that water will do that all by itself. So based on that, we can say Lao Tzu must have meant that water stays in the lowest places and people don't like the lowest places. That's number one. Number two, what's another way? We can check the commentaries. So this is sort of a privilege, a luxury that I have, that I enjoy, that is not available to the vast majority of people who study the Tao in the West. And that is because the commentaries that I'm referring to, these are commentaries in Chinese. Some of them have been written and passed down from a very long time ago. The earliest commentaries for the Tao Te Ching appeared shortly after the Tao Te Ching itself appeared in Chinese history. So that's how we can know about the accuracy of a particular interpretation. So how do you know that the places that people dislike is the lowest places? Well, that's what it says in every single commentary that's been passed down from one generation to the next, going back to very close to the origin of the Tao Te Ching itself. So the commentaries are uniformly clear on the intended meaning, and it's a metaphor. The metaphor being that higher level position, lower level position correspond to the state of one's ego. To occupy a very high place, that means to put yourself on a pedestal. That means, hey everybody, look at me. Focus your attention on me. Everything is about me, me, me. So conversely, to occupy a low place means having no need for that attention, for that to be the center of that attention. Now, what this means is that we are talking about the Tao of humility. Whenever we talk about the Tao of humility, I want to be very careful and very clear to explain exactly what it is and what it is not. Here's what I mean. Let's talk about the Tao of humility. Number one, I want to talk about a common misconception. It has to do with the word arrogance and the word humility. So think about arrogance versus humility. The common misconception is to imagine that arrogance and humility must be complementary opposites, like night and day, or yin and yang. So if you are paying attention, I hope this is a little bit surprising, because you might say, well, but they are. They are, Derek, aren't they? Humility and arrogance? Of course they're opposites. What are you talking about? That is a misconception. How can they not be complementary opposites? I don't understand. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and then ask everyone to contemplate this question as a challenge. How can humility and arrogance not be complementary opposites? If they're not complementary opposites, then what are complementary opposites? So I'm going to pause for a moment. If you've heard me talk about this before, you will know that the answer is actually very easy. It's quite plain, very basic. Any ideas? Okay, so I'm going to try to not keep anyone in suspense, and then move on to the solution to this little puzzle here. So I call this the Tao. The true opposite of arrogance is not humility, it's self-degradation or self-abasement, debasement. That means beating up on yourself. So arrogance is excessive, inflated concept of the self. It's the egocentric preoccupation with oneself. Okay, no problem. At the other end of the spectrum is the negative aspect of that, is the complete negative opposite of that. And it is not being humble, it is being really hard on yourself, it is being really dismissive and shameful within yourself, or hatred directed against yourself. So hopefully everyone can see the difference between being humble and having a lot of self-hatred. Yes? So if humility is not the extreme end of the spectrum on the opposite side of arrogance, then what is? Well, it's that sense of self-hatred, self-degradation, self-debasement. So what then is humility? So think about this, think about the difference. A humble person may use self-deprecating humor, but will never dishonor himself or herself. That is, this person using self-deprecating humor is actually using humor to express confidence. So let me ask you this question. Can a humble person be confident? Sure. You can be humble and very confident. Indeed, a truly confident person would also be a humble person. How does that work? So, the Tao of humility, in reality, is the path of moderation between extreme vanity, that's arrogance, and disgrace to oneself. That is the self-degradation, self-debasement, self-hatred. So it's not the opposite at all, but it's in the center, the path of moderation. So when you say that you practice the Tao of moderation, it is very compatible with the Tao of humility. If you say, if you are used to thinking about arrogance versus humility as being the two opposite ends of a spectrum, and then I ask you, well, so what's the moderation? What's the something in between arrogance and humility? Well, sort of half arrogance? No, there's no such thing. So humility is the true middle way. So what does that mean for us in daily life? Well, you can imagine when you interact with the people that you know, you can just observe and you can see my bullet point here. One extreme end of the spectrum is an overzealous pursuit of external recognition and validation. Do we all know people like that? Oh yeah. There are people like that out there. They're never satisfied unless they can get that external validation from other people. They have to be the center of attention. They have to get praised by everybody. And then they're still not satisfied. Hence, at the extreme end, overzealous pursuit of external recognition and validation. External approval. That's really tough because it's like a bottomless pit. You can never get enough external validation. It's hellish. The other extreme end of the spectrum, which we also observe in daily life, is the extreme shyness to the point of pathology. It's the active avoidance of attention, up to and including running away. Don't look at me. Hey, no, don't pay me any attention because, I really suck a lot. I'm really awful. I'm horrible. I'm terrible. Beating up on yourself. That is not self-deprecating humor, my friends. That is a complete lack of confidence and self-respect. Make sense? So what's the Tao then when we look at these two extremes? Well, in daily life, in reality, the Tao means that if you cultivate the Tao, if you are a Tao cultivator, you don't bother with chasing after external validation and approval and recognition, and you don't bother running away from attention. You don't do either one. No chasing after, no running away. You're just there. You're just in the background. You're comfortable and content without drawing attention to yourself because you don't really need it. So you can just observe, and if necessary, you can take action. That's the Tao cultivator. So this is a kind of mentality, an attitude, a sense, a mindset that can be a little hard to convey, but we recognize it when we see it. And we have always attempted to describe it in different ways. So imagine someone like that, and hopefully you can become like that yourself more often, more of the time, maybe all the time. So for Lao Tzu, when he wanted to describe this particular person, a person who doesn't pursue fame and fortune, but doesn't run away from recognition, but it's just, calm and detached, handling everything. So one way he described it is, hey, well, this person is like water, You know what I mean? Like water. Another way to describe it, well, similar to the Tao. Another way to describe this mindset, an attitude, a disposition. It results in the greatest good for oneself and others, and it's also a manifestation at the highest level of mastery in life. So, let me explain by summarizing how this person is, how to become this person. We have painted an individual who has a positive effect on everyone. You know, you bring good cheer, you bring help and assistance, you bring positivity, you bring a positive energy, you have a positive influence, positive effect on everybody. 2, this person never gets drawn into arguments or fights. And that's why Tao cultivators do not debate, because debates will oftentimes evolve into arguments and fights. And they're not terribly meaningful even when they don't get into arguments or fights. So this person stays above the fray, does not get drawn, does not get dragged down into fighting or arguing. And this is a person who hangs back, stays quiet, even after they have done something great. And typically, when people have done something great, they would be looking for applause and praise. Why? Because that's external recognition, that's external approval and validation. It validates me as a person. Well, this is an individual who doesn't bother with that. Because why? Because, well, frankly, doesn't need it. He or she doesn't need it. Just fine as it is. So, by now, you can see that I'm talking about a person that you can probably imagine I would like to meet. I would like to have more people like that in my life. And I would like to become someone like that. In modern times, to describe such an individual, we might use terms like, you know, he's cool, or she's a really cool mom, or, you know, yeah, you know, I know that dude, he's chill. He's like so chill. What are we talking about? Well, calm, detached, doesn't get, you know, overly excited, overzealous in wanting people to recognize how cool it is. It doesn't really matter. Why? Because he or she is just so cool, just that cool, or rad, or badass. Badass is more recent, and badass also brings in other dimensions that this person isn't just, you know, helpful, isn't just, you know, pleasant to be around, and not someone who takes credit and stuff like that, not someone who fights, but badass because this person has skills and mastery, is really good at something. You know, we say someone who's really good is bad. Badass. That's right. So, what might be another way to see such an individual? Well, it's easy. In popular entertainment, this is a character that appears often. This is the cool dude. This is the you know, the girl that everybody likes, the girl that everybody wants to either be with or become. You know, this is the, like, oftentimes the main character, the hero, the protagonist. So, what about in music, in addition to movies? Well, from classic rock, there's Tom Sawyer from Rush. Of course, you know, as I'm talking about this, I know that this broadcast is going to go out to many people who have no idea who that is, because, you know, they don't know what great music they're missing. But there's a song called Tom Sawyer from from the rock group, the Canadian rock group, Rush. And it's got, well, first of all, it's from the album, Moving Pictures. And here's what that album looks like. This was my favorite album back in high school. So this is from a long time ago. We're talking maybe 40 years ago now. 35 years ago, I think. So let's take a look at the lyrics. Describing Tom Sawyer. Now, this is not Tom Sawyer, the character from literature. This is talking about the Tom Sawyer mindset. So, lyrics written by Neil Peart, the drummer. Though his mind is not for rent, don't put him down as arrogant. His reserve of quiet defense, writing out the day's event, the river. So right off the bat, we've got multiple hits on Tao-related concepts. So, I had no idea when I heard this for the first time when I was in high school. I just thought it was a really cool song. Here, we've got someone who has a mind of his own. Not for rent, not for sale. But not arrogant. We just got done talking about arrogance, humility, self-degradation, right? So Tom Sawyer, not arrogant, but also not degrading of himself either. Tom Sawyer mentality is reserved, quiet, just hanging out, watching everything in a detached, cool fashion. Writing all the day's events, the river. Wow, how many times have we talked about the river and water as metaphors for the Tao? So I think perhaps without knowing, exactly that this was going to be a very Tao-centric song, songwriter Neil Peart jotted down these lyrics that have an incredible amount of correspondence to the Tao. And that's not all. No, his mind is not for rent to any god or government, always hopeful yet discontent. He knows changes aren't permanent, but change is. So, same song, additional references to the Tao, probably, without meaning to make references to the Tao. That change is a universal constant. And in the Tao, we have I Ching, the book of changes. The mind is not for rent to any god or government. Again, someone who has a mind of his own, someone who thinks through different issues. So, there you go. And the live album from Rush is called Like the Stage Left. In that live album, in the live performance of Tom Sawyer, there was a audio clip of Neil Peart, the drummer, who wrote the lyrics. He's talking about the meaning of the lyrics. So the drummer, Neil Peart, is here in the back, and in front of him we've got Geddy Lee on bass, Alex Lifeson on guitar. These were three virtuosos in their individual craft came together in that super group, Rush. So Neil Peart said that Tom Sawyer mentality of having a very carefree stride and a very self-possessed kind of air. So, carefree, you say, yet another hit on a Tao reference. Self-possessed. Well, that's what we're talking about. Someone who's cool and detached and observant, ready to take action, but doesn't need to take credit. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. A Tom Sawyer mentality. This is a cool person. Okay, so time flies when we're having fun. Let me summarize today's talk by providing 3 ways to get closer to the Tao. And when I say get closer, I'm talking about to become more similar to the Tao to be more in alignment with the Tao, more congruent to the Tao. Number one, like water nurturing all living things, be a positive influence and source of goodness to everyone around you. Bring them good cheer. Give them encouragement. Be helpful. Be the person that everyone smiles when they see you. Number two, like water, contending against no one. Be the person who brings peace. Put out fires and defuse explosive situations whenever possible. So my challenge for you is to not just be the peaceful person, but also be the peacemaker. Don't be the one to start conflicts or clashing with others. More than that, when there's conflict or clashing going on, I would like you to observe the situation and see if you can skillfully nudge everyone toward a calmer, more composed, more peaceful perspective. That's number two. Number three, like water flowing to the lowest point. The practice here is about the Tao of humility, and that means let go of the need to seek the spotlight. Let go of the need to draw attention to yourself. See what happens when other people show off, display themselves, and you do not. I guarantee you there's magic that'll happen if you practice this consistently, day in and day out. Without showcasing yourself, you end up being noticed more so than the people who brag. So put it to the test and let me know how it goes for you. On that note, we are now at the end of our time together.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位顶传十一鞠躬，斜翻一鞠躬。Well done, everybody. Thank you so much.